Now, Ross Kaminsky on Denver's talk station, 630 KHOW.
When last we spoke to Jerry Schemmel, who most of you know as the voice of the Rockies, along with his partner in crime, Jack Corrigan, when last we spoke with Jerry, he had just finished biking about 468 miles across the state of Colorado, trying to beat the record. He didn't quite beat the record, but still did something I could never even imagine doing in order to raise some money for a group called Pause for Purple Hearts. And many of you listeners contributed to that. I contributed to that as well. And it's just an incredible and fairly heroic thing. But, of course, we've almost come to expect that from Jerry, who's a fairly amazing guy, a survivor of a plane crash, and a great asset to the city of Denver and the state of Colorado. Jerry, who already has one of the best jobs a baseball fan could ever hope for, has a really cool additional, I don't know if I'll call it a job or a project, but here to tell us about his brand new radio show, the man himself, Jerry Schemmel. Good morning, Jerry. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Ross. Good to be with you.
What you got going? Tell us about Amazing Americans.
Yeah, Amazing Americans, Ross, it's a show that I had beating around in my head for years. I thought it'd be a nice little radio show. I didn't really think about it being an hour long, so extended interview with somebody, but I was always intrigued by these motivating and inspiring stories of people. People who win wrestling titles with one leg, and former Playboy playmates who become homeless and find their meaning in life in the slums of Port-au-Prince in Haiti. Those kind of stories are not mainline. They're different. They're motivating. They're inspiring, and I love telling them. I love reading about them, and now I love telling them about them, and now I love interviewing people who are those stories. So that's kind of the genesis of it. It was motivating people out there whose stories you don't hear a whole lot about. We hear about the negative stuff, especially in sports, but let's get the positive stories out there. So that's kind of why Amazing Americans is on once a week on KOA Radio.
And that's at Sunday mornings at 8 o'clock. And did you have the first one already, or is the first one coming this Sunday?
No, we had one already. On Sunday was a debut. We had Sean Swarner, who was an incredible story, Ross. He's the first cancer survivor ever to climb Mount Everest, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. He's had one lung removed, and doctors told him it was impossible for a human being to climb Mount Everest with one lung. He did that, went on to climb the highest peaks in all 7 continents, plus trek to the South and North Poles, the Explorers Grand Slam, all with one lung, all with the story where people said it was physically impossible to do. He did it. He was my guest on Sunday. He was in studio, and it was a fascinating story.
So when you do are these shows live?
No, they aren't. They're recorded.
Okay, but you did this. But he joined you in studio, which is
correct.
Which is pretty cool. So with some of these people, let's say that gentleman or your guest for this Sunday, Susie Krabacher.
Krabacher.
Krabacher. How do you find them?
Since I had this thing rattling around in my head for so long, I just kept writing names of people down. And I had a list of about 125 people before the show ever got on the air. So I've got a long list of people. And these days, as you know, it's easy to find people. 20 years ago, it might have been difficult to run these people down, but everybody's got a website, everybody's got a cause, so it's pretty easy to locate and talk to people. So I just had these stories, written down for years, and now I'm starting to attack that list a little bit.
And by the way, folks, you want to see what Jerry's doing on the show, previous guests, future guests, you can check out AmazingAmericans.org. By the way, I can't believe that URL was available if you just got it recently.
Well, I did about a year ago. Yeah, isn't that amazing?
It is. How did he get that?
I don't know. That one slipped through the cracks for some reason. I don't know how it happened.
That's pretty funny. So tell us a little bit about your upcoming guest for this Sunday.
Yeah, Susie Krabacher is just an incredible story. This is just a former Playboy centerfold, and she's 54 years old now. And Ross, when you see her, you can tell you have a pretty good idea she was a centerfold. She still looks great, but she was sexually abused as a child, so a very tough upbringing, obviously, and went through the whole process of becoming a playmate, lived in the Playboy mansion, got drugged by Hugh Hefner himself, and who tried to get her in bed, and
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she has wrote a book about it and talks about it in the show as well. But went through all that, and then after that whole Playboy experience, she just crashed. She hit rock bottom, was homeless for a while, completely broke. Decided that she was going to go to Haiti by herself. So she goes to Haiti, goes to the slums of Port-au-Prince, and just starts walking around. Maybe the most dangerous place in the world, people say. Starts walking around, ends up, a young boy kind of pulled her off the street and took her to his, quote, home, which is a 15 by 15 square foot shack, basically, with 17 other people. Woke up in the next morning and went to the city dump with them all to try to find something to eat. And it just changed her life. She found her calling that way. Stayed there for another week, went back to Haiti, started an orphanage, and now she runs an orphanage. I think she's been running this thing for 20-some years now. A feeding station, a water station, a school. Has just found her life's calling in Port-au-Prince, and has started with a trip by herself to the slums of Port-au-Prince, and that's her story. It's an incredible one, and she tells it very, very well.
Wow. And does she live in Haiti? Does she live in the U.S.? Is she going to be in studio, or is she in studio with you?
Yeah. No, she did this by phone. She lives in Aspen. Her husband's an attorney in Aspen, but she goes to Port-au-Prince, and she lives there about half the time. She's here half the time, and in Port-au-Prince about half the time.
Wow, that's really something. You don't talk about it too much, but you survived a plane crash. I mean, so
Yeah.
Does that somehow even subconsciously, and I know I'm asking you to consciously analyze your own subconscious, which may be impossible, but did that experience, you think, have an influence on your wanting to take on a project like this?
Yeah, the answer is yes. No question about that, Ross. And I think it has probably everything to do with it. I know after the plane crash, I made a very conscious decision to still live life and not let this thing define me, and go on and try to achieve my dreams. And that's what these people are doing. And the common denominator with all the people I interview seems to be there was some point where life was really difficult. There was an experience, or something happened, drugs or alcohol, or in my case, a plane crash. Another case was Sean, who was on Sunday, was cancer 2 different times as a teenager. We all have this same, and we all have plane crashes. Everybody has their own plane crash. You have one. I don't know what it is, but I know you have one. Everybody does. And you're defined by how you come back after that plane crash. And these are what these people have done in extraordinary ways. And I experienced that, and I want to let the world know that you can do the same thing. You can go through your own plane crash and bounce back and do amazing things and become, like we talk about in the show, an amazing American. So, yeah, the plane crash had everything to do with it.
Wow. I guess my plane crash would be way less significant than yours, but in, 1989, I was 24 years old. I lost. So in my previous business, Jerry, I was a financial markets trader, waving my hands and yelling in Chicago, and I lost my entire net worth and another $100,000 in one morning.
Yeah.
And I, on the one hand, you think it's just money, but in that business, it was. I kind of felt like, have I just lost my career, my ability to make money for the rest of my life? What does my future look like? It is not the same, though,
Right.
as getting out of a burning airplane and going back into it to rescue a toddler, which you did.
Yeah, I understand that, but there are people, like I said, my wife came up with this and a long time ago, and it's very true. Everybody has their own plane crash. It might not be as bad as what I went through. It might be a lot worse than I went through. I know people, and I've interviewed these people for this show, that have gone through a lot worse than a plane crash, and ours was difficult, yeah, but there are things that people go through that are way more challenging than that. Hey, losing all your whole net worth plus $100,000. That's a plane crash. I don't care. It might be a small plane, but it's a plane crash, Ross. And look what you've done. You've bounced back from it like these other people have done as well. I'd
say in no way do I think of myself as an amazing American. The way your guests are, the way you are, you won't admit it, but I'll say it. And you know what? I want to. Can I just stick with the plane crash thing for a minute?
Sure.
I'm assuming, tell me if I'm wrong, but that I would guess would have some PTSD sort of after effects.
Yeah.
How
No
did you,
question.
if it's true for you, if it was true for you, how did you deal with that? And the reason I'm asking is more in the form of advice for anyone who's listening to us
Yeah.
who either is or knows someone or might in the future have these kinds of issues.
Yeah. By the way, 1989 was a rough year for both of us. That was the plane crash year as well for me.
Uh-huh.
So, after the plane crash, I went to a counselor, just urged by family to do that. And that term was thrown at me, post-trauma stress disorder. I had never heard that before. Post-trauma, what? Say that again? I need to write that. I don't even know what you're talking about. And I was told all the symptoms of it would happen to me, and then they did, just like, and I just kind of brushed off like it was nothing, like I could work through it. And it was really, really difficult. It's a real phenomenon, post-trauma stress disorder. And everybody who survived our plane crash, Ross, went through it, as you might gather. I think the turning point for me was coming to the realization that the plane crash was never going to make sense. I was never going to completely deal with it and put it behind me. Everybody around me that crash died. There's a circle of people around me who died in the crash, and I don't have any serious injuries. There's a little boy in front of me who's almost 2 years of age. One moment he's perfectly healthy and happy. Next moment he's dead. I see him over and he's gone. That's never going to make sense. And when I realized it would never make sense, I stopped asking the question why so often. And that was a turning point for me. Was, I'm just going to have to deal with this thing because I'm never going to completely resolve it. So let's just let's deal with it the best we can. Let's talk about it. Let's not shove it aside. Let's deal with it because it's a part of your life now, and let's just do the best we can with it. But when people say, "Oh, I'm probably bringing up bad memories by asking about it," no, not at all. It's good therapy for me to talk about it, and I think that's the advice I'd have for other people: is deal with it as best you can. Move on, but you're never going to forget it. It'll always be a part of your life, but make the best of it.
For those of you just joining us, if you don't recognize the voice, my very special guest, Jerry Schemmel, going into his 10th year with the Rockies.
Yeah.
Wow.
That went fast, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It went really fast. And we're talking about Jerry's new radio show, Amazing Americans, which airs Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. on the little station across the hall called KOA News Radio, 850 a.m. and 94.1 FM. Did you know I used to do Sunday mornings on KOA, Jerry?
No, I did not know that.
I did. And then Saturday mornings. All right, as long as I've got you, how do you think the Rockies are going to be next season?
I think they're going to be good, Ross. I really do. I don't see any reason why they won't be again, and the biggest reason for that is great pitching. They got a bunch of young arms that are really talented, and as long as you have a rotation, you're going to be competitive, and I think it's where the Rockies are. I think Daniel Murphy signing is a great one. He's going to fit in perfectly. I think you're going to have some guys who are going to have bounce-back years that maybe were off a little bit last year. Probably a little reshuffling the bullpen, but I think it's going to be fine that way. But it's a good team again. I mean, you lose a couple of pieces, but I think you can fill those in very, very well, and I'm excited about it. I think this team is as good or better than it was a year ago.
So not crazy to think they'd have a chance of making some progress in the postseason?
No, not at all. I think that's a very good chance. It's a great first step this last year in making the playoffs 2 years in a row. Obviously, there are a lot of teams that have done that the last 2 years. So, yeah, I think the last 2 years were stepping stones, and I think this year might be even more special for the Rockies. I really do. I just got that hunch this year.
Well, I hope you're right. I'll certainly be listening. Everybody, I hope you will listen not only to Jerry during the Rockies season, but to his brand new show, Amazing Americans. Again, KOA, Sundays at 8 a.m. This Sunday's guest, Susie Krabacher, who Jerry told you a little bit about a few minutes ago. I'm really excited to listen to it myself. Oh, one quick follow. Is there going to be a podcast or anything like that available for folks who can't listen, maybe in church at that time or something?
Yeah, there is. On the website, on the KOA website, on my page, there's a link to the podcast. We'll have the podcast up within hours after the show is on the air. So, yeah, link to the show itself and a podcast. So all that is there on the website.
Excellent. Everybody check out AmazingAmericans.org. Listen to Jerry's show. Hey, Jerry, thanks so much for being with us this morning, and I'm really excited about your project, probably almost as excited as you are.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thanks
All right.
for having me on.
All right, we'll see you. I love the idea, the concept there, not just okay, interesting people with interesting stories, motivational stories of triumph and tragedy, as Jerry puts it on the website, AmazingAmericans.org. But the idea that it started off our conversation with, it's so easy to have just negative conversations these days. And I try hard to avoid that. We talk about a lot of politics on this show, state level politics, national. We talk about international politics. And a lot of that feels negative, especially these days with so many personal attacks in this kind of era of Trump. And I don't mean because of Trump necessarily, right? I think things were getting very personal under Obama, and then even under Bush with, Bush derangement syndrome by the left. And you just there's so much negative talk out there, and it gets a little heavy. Now, I think, a pretty good job personally, and I try to bring that to the show, of not taking politics personally. I'm not saying I don't take it seriously. I'm just saying I don't take it personally. I don't think that person is necessarily out to attack me. I just usually think with people on the left, mostly they have bad ideas, and we need to fight against them in the world of ideas. But still, you get in this world of insults and back and forth. And so that's part of the reason I try to bring you stuff that isn't all politics all the time. But it's also part of the reason I think that the timing of Jerry's new show couldn't be better. I mean, we all need a little break. We all need a little break from politics from time to time, or from anything else. It doesn't have to be politics, just an uplifting, positive story. But I'll tell you what, I'm not going to give you that right now, coming up next, because one thing I haven't spoken about, partly because I've been avoiding it for reasons I just described, but we need to talk about it, is Democrats and impeachment. Are the big guns actually talking about it?
This report is sponsored by Blue